So here is a cervical vertebra. You can see this one looks different from our thoracic vertebra. For one thing, it's got these holes in the sides, and those are our characteristic of the cervical vertebrae. There we go, you can see it better there. The transverse foramina in the transverse processes are the characteristics that separate the cervical vertebra from the thoracic and lumbar vertebrae. The spinous process also looks different. You can see it's got this little notch in the end. It's bifurcated. We say it's bifid or bifid. So we say that the cervical vertebrae have a bifid spinous process. You can see that the body is kind of more oval, sort of kidney bean shaped, unlike the rounder ones in the thoracic and lumbar vertebrae. Also, the superior articular processes face almost entirely straight up, and the inferior face almost straight down. They're a little bit slanted, but not as much as we see in other sections, okay? But remember, you can always tell the vertebrae because the top side, because the spinous process goes down a little bit, okay? Now, we do have the first two of the cervical vertebrae are special, and they look different from the others. And this is them. The bottom one is called the axis, and the top one is called the atlas. And they look different from all the other vertebrae. So I'm going to start with the top one because I really like it. It's my favorite. So this one is called the atlas. This is, okay, goes together like that. So this is the posterior side, and this is the anterior side. It's hard to tell because it doesn't have a spinous process. So all it has is this little tubercle, a posterior tubercle and an anterior tubercle. And the reason that it has this weird shape is because it articulates with the skull. It's going to articulate the superior side of this, which is these facets with a bigger indentation in them. These are going to articulate with the occipital condyles, which you remember sit on either side of the foramen magnum. So these are the occipital condyles. These are going to articulate with the axis thusly. And then, I'm sorry, I said atlas, not axis. All right, we also see it is a cervical vertebra, so it does have transverse foramina, has these really short, stubby transverse processes, big arch, very big vertebral foramen because the whole spinal cord, the biggest part of the spinal cord is going to go through right here, okay? So this one enables you to nod yes, okay? This articulation with the skull. Now, C2, this is C1, the atlas. C2 is called the axis, and it has this little process here called the dens, D-E-N-S, and this dens goes up against, sorry, let me get these together again. Oop, not like that. That's better. It goes up against the atlas, and this dens acts as an axis so that the head can twist. Okay, I'm not doing the best demonstration here, but they twist like that so you can tilt your head now. Okay, so we see the same markings that we see on the rest of the cervical vertebrae. We have transverse foramina on either side. We have a fairly large vertebral foramen. Superior articular processes go almost straight up. Inferior articular processes and facets go almost straight down. Again, this is called the dens. We do see the bifid spinous process that's characteristic of our cervical vertebrae. Okay, and this one does kind of have a body, although it's not as big as it's going to be in other cervical vertebrae. So this is the axis, C1, transverse foramina, posterior tubercle, anterior tubercle. This is C2, the axis. dens, bifid spinous process, superior articular facets, inferior articular facets. And then the other cervical vertebrae, we see transverse foramina, nice oval shaped body, inferior articular facets, superior articular facets, and a bifid spinous process. And that's your cervical vertebrae.